This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, superfans. I am Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are previewing the Week 4 matchup of the Chicago Bears taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Chicago at 3:25 p.m., airing on CBS. Bears coming off a win against the Redskins and the Vikings. Ricky, what did your team do last week?
We beat the Raiders.
And you did.
And we
stomped them in.
We completely destroyed them after that bad game against the Packers.
Adam Thielen had a huge game. So we'll be previewing that Week 4 matchup, the first matchup between these two teams, and the second matchup for the Bears and Vikings, at least taking on NFC North opponents. And then after that, we will welcome in our patron Sam on. Ricky and I will, at least Dave will be gone, to preview the 2019 season for the Chicago Blackhawks. And if you do want to be like Sam and be on a podcast and call in and give your takes about whatever topic you like, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast and you can join us at the gold tier. But boys, let's jump into this matchup. Week 4, Bears just beat the Redskins, Vikings just beat the Raiders and John Gruden. This was a matchup that the Bears just dominated last year in. They won, I think it was 24-17 at home last year. And then in the last game of the week, the Vikings needed to win to get a playoff spot. The Bears already had it locked up, and the Bears went into Minnesota and stopped them 24-10. However, the Bears aren't looking as formidable as they were last year, at least when these teams met early on in the season. The biggest thing from the Bears so far has been the problems with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. So, Dave, I'm going to go to you first. Last week, we did see Mitch's best game this year as him under center, but it wasn't really still a great performance. It was a very good performance, at least for Mitch Trubisky standards. It wasn't anything like a Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady game, but it was progress. Did you see enough last week to feel confident as a Bears fan going in to play this Minnesota team that is looking so far pretty good? Already we knew they were going to have a good defense. Kirk Cousins has been up and down, but Dalvin Cook looks like an absolute monster. Are you confident going into this game, mainly because of what you saw from last week of Mitch Trubisky?
Trubisky doesn't really breed confidence in me right now, and it's an interesting thing because we got to see almost like a setup for this matchup, because we got to watch Derek Carr went over, played against the Broncos, then we followed up that trip. Derek Carr goes to play the Vikings. Now we get to go play the Vikings. So you kind of understand, like, all right, this is what they could do against each defense week after week. And yes, we were able to have a really good week against the Redskins, but most of that was predicated on the defense. Yes, Trubisky did enough to move the ball at times. He had a couple of amazing throws, and he looked really great out of the pocket, as we know. But that's not where he spends the majority of his time, and he definitely got bailed out by Taylor Gabriel on one of the most amazing catches I think we've seen in a long time.
It was also a phenomenal throw from Mitch.
Yeah,
I think that was probably my favorite Mitch throw that he's ever had. Yeah. I mean, it was an incredible job by Taylor Gabriel, but I mean, you got to give credit to Mitch on that throw, too.
I absolutely do. I think the thing to keep an eye out for in this game is how long they're going to play with the short yardage passing, because Mitch has so many passes complete within the first 0 to 5 yards from scrimmage. That's the comfort zone for him. So if you see the Vikings corner start coming up and playing press, getting physical at the line, that's going to breed a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of different, possibilities for this Bears offense, because we'll have to see Nagy, is he going to be able to audible out of those early throws? We've seen them come up to the line early. This last week especially was get up to line with about 18 seconds left, 15 seconds left, check the reads, see where the defense is lined up at, fake call, then bring back, all right, we're changing to whatever. And it's like, if they have the time to dissect a defense like that, then sure, we'll be fine. But if it's getting crunch time and Mitch is running and gunning, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and I think the positive of this podcast is we have two Bears fans, Dave and I, on this podcast. But then Ricky, you are from Chicago. You are mostly a Chicago fan outside of your NFL allegiance. You are a Vikings fan, so we do get a Vikings side of this matchup. So what are you feeling going into this game? Are you confident in this game going up against the Bears? Do you feel like you guys should win this game?
We should win, and I kind of want to be the cockiness of like, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm shaking in my boots for this game, because everyone's going to want to talk about the quarterbacks. Everyone's going to want to talk about Mitch Trubisky, Kirk Cousins. I don't think the game comes down to that. The game comes down to the rushing attack for both teams. Because on our side, and I say our side, sorry, super fans for today, the Vikings is what I mean when I say our for today. Dalvin Cook has been a monster. 100-yard games, all 3 games of the year. 1 touchdown, then 2 touchdowns last week against the Raiders. He's been a man on fire.
Raider.
Or one Raider. It's John Gruden. He's the only Raider. But he's been a man on fire. And I know that you'll look at it and you'll say, well, our defense has done really good against running backs.
It's been a long time since we gave up 100 yards in regulation.
it's not really good, but continue your point.
But my point is that
phenomenal.
Week one, Aaron Jones, I feel like the Aaron Jones that we're starting to see was more of what we're going to see this year. Mm-hmm. That first game was just preseason because no one played in the preseason. Then you had game 2, the Broncos. Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay are not on the same level as Dalvin Cook. And then you have the Redskins where Adrian Peterson, he used to be great, but he's not great anymore.
But here's the... Okay.
And on the other side with the Bears, the running backs at the Vikings, like if you look at all of our games, the Falcons couldn't run the ball. The Raiders couldn't run the ball. They lost. The only team to beat us, yes, Kirk Cousins was bad in that game, overthrew receivers, but the only team to beat us was the Packers, who gouged us rushing the ball in that game.
Yeah, at least to combat what you're saying, I think the reason why no Bears fan is shaking in their boots, yes, this is a game we could definitely lose. Yep. The reason we don't is because of our defense. Their defense has been the best in the NFL for the past, and you could throw in the playoffs, so that'd be 18, and then 21 weeks. 21 weeks in the past NFL season. This has been the best defense in the league, without a doubt. Yep. And you look at what they've done against the run for the past 2 years, because it's not just at what they've done this year, because it's the same exact team. And yes, Akeem Hicks might not play. He's questionable right now. But outside of that, this team is fairly healthy. Bilal Nichols is going to be out with his hand injury. But outside of that, this team is still full strength defensively. You look at what they've done against running backs. They've absolutely dominated. They've been top 3 in both of them. And since Khalil Mack was added to this defense, they've allowed 5 touchdowns in 20 games. 5 rushing touchdowns in 20 games.
What I'm saying is they're going to need to be that. They're going to need to be that this year.
That's just who they are. It's not need to be. And you could look at the games last year.
When you have the same performance week in and week out, you don't need to be. That's who you are. I agree.
Here's the thing, too, is like you look at what the Bears have done throughout the past 2 years, and you look at especially what they've done against Dalvin Cook. 12 yards in that game that they won 25-20. I said it was 24-17. My bad on that one. But that was at the one at Soldier Field, I believe, on Monday night. Dalvin Cook, 9 carries, 12 yards. Kirk Cousins threw 46 times, 26 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That was before you guys fired DeFilippo, I think, as your OC, and I think that was a big thing where people were like, "Oh, they're not running it enough." Well,
and Dalvin Cook was dealing with injuries.
Well, then week 17, he gets the ball 11 times and runs for 39 yards, and that you see Kirk Cousins only threw 33 times. And this is a thing too where you look at all these top tier backs that they have faced. David Johnson, 12 yards, 31 carries last year. You look last year as well. Sony Michel, 4 carries, 22 yards. He got injured, but then Kenyon Barner, 10 carries, 36 yards, and 11 carries for James White for 40 yards for the Patriots. You look at Frank Gore had one of the best games for the team last year, but that was in the heat wave of Miami that this team was absolutely gassed out there. This team wasn't used to it, so that was their worst game pretty much by far.
That was a bizarre game too.
And Brock Osweiler had a crazy game. And the other game that was great was when they played against the best running back in the NFL, Saquon Barkley last year, 24 carries, 125 yards, but that was also it was an OT loss, but then also the biggest thing, too, Mitch was injured that game. Yeah. So you look at the games where Mitch has played, and they've had a competent quarterback, also Todd Gurley, 11 carries, 28 yards, where they've played a competent, where they have Mitch Trubisky, and they're playing in competent, typical weather that they're used to. They don't let up big yards. They don't let guys get even over 50 yards in a game, let alone 100. I understand Dalvin Cook's been fantastic, but also one of the biggest weakest points of this Vikings team is your offensive line. And you have these speedy linebackers like Roquan Smith, like Danny Trevathan, that can stop Dalvin Cook at the point of attack before he gets his full head of steam. And you can get Khalil Mack into the backfield, stopping him and having him change direction and making him dance behind the offensive line. So, yes, Dalvin Cook can be an absolute game changer, and this is probably the best and most important matchup for both teams is winning the point of attack and opening up running lanes for Dalvin Cook and the Bears pressuring Dalvin Cook to not feel comfortable back there. But whoever wins that matchup, it is fairly even. I would give the edge to the Bears for what they have done against Dalvin Cook in the past. And if they do win that, I do feel like they're going to win the game.
Well, and the thing I'm saying is it comes down to whichever team rushes the ball better is going to win this game, because the Bears have been good against the rush, but Dalvin Cook, this is really the first year we've seen a healthy Dalvin Cook. On the other side for the Bears, I mean, David Montgomery looked good in the last game, like 67 yards. And the last two, he's looked good. Week 1 was the kind of one where it's like, hey, Matt.
He ripped off good runs. He was always fighting. They're the most exciting, 4, 5, 6 yards.
Against the Packers, our biggest criticism was, are you going to run the ball, Matt? Hey, Matt. Hey, Nagy, you going to run the ball?
Dave's argument is it's not Montgomery that looked bad or Montgomery that looked poor. It was Nagy's fault that Montgomery wasn't.
But now with his touches, he has looked good the last two.
That's all Dave.
The thing is he going to be successful against this Viking front? Because the only running back, if we're going to play devil's advocate here, let's go to the other side with the Vikings defense. The only running back to have a significant game against them was Aaron Jones in that Packer game. Mm-hmm. Jacobs didn't do much last week. I'm trying to think. It's not Ito Smith as the running back for the Falcons. Devonta Freeman didn't do much at all. Ito Smith was actually the leading rusher with 31 yards in that game, as Freeman only had 19 on 8 carries. So it's like, with me, if the Bears can run successfully, they can win this game. They could put them into position to win this game, because the thing that I think is different this year than the other matchups is Mitch played better last year, in my opinion. And the last game that we saw against the Redskins, he had 3 touchdowns, but like Dave said, on one of them, even some of them, it was Taylor Gabriel had a really good game too. So it's kind of a yin and yang there as well.
2 of them he was wide open.
Yeah, he literally coasted through.
Mitch said that in the first one and Jeff Joniak had the call that it's the easiest touchdown pass that Mitch will ever throw in his career. Yeah. Mitch said that he thought Gabriel was going to be pissed at him if he didn't throw the touchdown, or because he was thinking about running it in.
Is Mitch going to have that again this week? Probably not, because the Vikings defense is better than the Redskins, and that's why it's like,
we know shaky quarterback play is going to be a part of this, because the reason you guys lost largely last year, twice to the Bears, was because of Kirk Cousins just being garbage.
So
he threw 33 times last year in Week 17 and threw for 132 yards. And you look at when they played in Chicago, 46 times for 262 yards and 2 interceptions. I think one of those was returned for a pick 6. So that's how the Bears are going to win. I don't really think it's rushing the ball. I don't think it's really dependent on that for them. It's just, can you create turnovers and can you stop Dalvin Cook? And if you do that, you will win the game. And it's going to be iffy because Eddie Pinheiro is still questionable with his knee injury.
He will play though. That's what they announced.
Yeah, but we see that what he was doing last Monday. He was hobbling out there. He wasn't able to put his full strength in there. He was barely even able to stand on his leg. It was a great performance from him with those considerations, but I don't have full faith in him, especially kicking in a horrible field at Soldier Field.
Apparently, the meat packing place that I pass on my way to work every day, apparently they have on their sign that Eddie Pinheiro is a gift from God, and that we need to recognize him as a gift from God.
He's a badass. He's a badass. I just don't trust him with a knee injury. I don't know exactly what he is going to be like. Can he fully give 100% out there? He's going to try his ass off. I know that, so I love him for that. But I don't know if he's going to be, if we need him to kick a 55-yarder to win the game, I don't think it's going to be possible. But we look at what what happened last year. Cody Parkey had 3 field goals in that game, a pick 6. It wasn't really, the Bears' offense. There was only 1 touchdown. It was an 18-yard pass from Trubisky to Anthony Miller last year. That was the only offensive touchdown the Bears had in that game at home. I think it's really just going to come down to the defenses, like we've been saying. I think it's stopping Dalvin Cook and it's forcing turnovers. And that's clearly shown in the line right now that's sitting. Bears have a 2-point spread. They're favored by 2 points. And the over-under is 38.5. So they're not thinking that this is going to be a high-scoring effort game out here. So looking at that, I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head that this is going to be a run-dominant game, like you were saying. Winning the offensive line is going to be important for both teams. Turnovers is probably going to be a key factor. And that's why I think I'm going to lead towards the Bears here, because, one, we have a kicker that I know we could trust if he is healthy. And if he's healthy enough, or at least played like he did last week, I'm totally fine with him kicking within 40 yards. I think he'll be able to knock those home. And we know that the Bears can at least get to that level. Can they get in the end zone? We don't know. But we know that the Bears' defense can shorten the field for him. We know that pretty much Mitch only needs to get 50 yards on any drive just to put them in field goal range. And if they do that enough, that's going to put pressure on to Kirk Cousins because it's going to be playing behind a lead. If the Bears get out to a lead, that's going to force Kirk Cousins to throw, and I highly favor this defense against Kirk Cousins throwing the ball than I do them against Dalvin Cook.
And I do mention, like I did mention at the beginning, where hey, everyone's going to want to talk about the quarterbacks, and the one thing you got to say, the big thing for Kirk Cousins in this one is, can he finally prove to us that, hey, I can beat a playoff team. I can beat a big opponent. Because so far, looking at last year, looking at his time in Washington, even looking at this year so far, he can't, like, the big game comes up, and he can't win that game. Both games against the Bears last year. This year against the Packers, lose it. Last year, we go into Lambeau, and he doesn't even win against the Packers. We tied and lost against the Packers. So, I mean, this could be a game where if Kirk Cousins can say, hey, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to play well, and I'm going to show that I can help this team win the game, that could kind of help maybe change the narrative, flip the script for Kirk Cousins, but he's going to have to actually do it. And both these quarterbacks, in their own respects, are going to have pressure in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, Cousins clearly didn't have the confidence 2 weeks ago. It was basically, I think he only threw the ball 10 times.
Well, they were dominating that game.
I know, but still, it's like when you have a base of attack, the way Dalvin Cook's been dealing, I understand not throwing it a ton, but
You're talking about the Falcon game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went 8 of 10 in that game.
Yeah, that shows a whole lot of confidence in that offense. Like that, I get it. Lopside score aside, it's just if you're not having the same level of confidence in your quarterback, I just have questions about his ability to play up. And you're right, Ricky. His big thing has been his inability to beat teams like against teams above 500. He's been for his entire career a negative quarterback.
I agree with you that he's been a negative quarterback in Minnesota. I want to make sure and clear that was the first game was not an indictment on how much they trust Kirk Cousins. They were up 28-0 after the third quarter. So I mean, I don't think the first game has to do. If you want to pick out that Packer game where he completely blew it, absolutely. If you want to look at any of the NFC North battles from last year, you can absolutely do that.
I'm saying that
week one,
when you're watching his pitch count and he's playing from ahead, he's not a bad quarterback. But when you get into a shootout, when you get into situations where it's 3rd and long, because if the Bears get an early lead, they can pin their ears back, and then you see the real Kirk Cousins. Then you see the guy who makes the mistakes. He's got a great arm, but he will throw it up there for guys to get. And we've got excellent safeties in that secondary who can absolutely ball hawk for it. Kyle Fuller, same thing. He goes up there and gets it. So I think that's the big thing when I look at Kirk Cousins is make him uncomfortable, get an early lead for the Bears, and then those long third downs, it's going to be dirty. That's when you take advantage of Kirk Cousins because that's who he's been his entire career, is the guy who's going to make those mistakes.
Yeah, and I just to give an insight of the injury report right now, we are recording this on Thursday. For the Bears, did not practice Mike Davis for personal reasons. Taylor Gabriel, because he's in the concussion protocol, so he might be iffy. Akeem Hicks did not practice as well. He's dealing with a knee injury. Kyle Long was a new addition. He's dealing with a hip injury, but that's been typical so far for the Bears and his season so far. He was a full participant last week, so that could just be a management thing that Matt Nagy has been talking about with him. Bilal Nichols has a broken hand. He's most likely not going to play. And then Eddie Pinheiro did not practice again with a right knee injury. Limited participation is still Eddie Jackson with a shoulder injury, but he should be fine for Sunday. Trey Burton was a full participant for the first time this year, or last week. Yesterday was his first time being a full participant. This is his second time being a full participant this week with a groin injury. Bobby Massey, who had vertigo last week, is a full practice, so he should be starting for the Bears. Roy Robertson Harris was a full participant in practice, and so was Cordero Patterson. So they should have Burton, Massey, Roy Robb, and Cordero. Eddie Jackson should be good. The iffy ones for the Bears, I think, will be Akeem Hicks and Taylor Gabriel. If they can go, like you said, Eddie Pinheiro is probably going to play, and I'd be shocked if Kyle Long didn't play. And then for the Vikings, did not practice Josh Klein. He's also in the concussion protocol. Kentrell Brothers. He has a wrist and hamstring injury. He was a limited participant. And then fully participating was Mackenzie Alexander, Anthony Barr, Ben Giedrin, Everson Griffin, and Jaron Kearse.
The one thing I was going to jump in and say was to agree with Dave's point. Going off of last year in the 2 games against the Vikings and Bears, in the first game, Vikings jump out to a 14-0 lead. Vikings don't even score in that first half. Yeah, it was close, 22-14 in the towards the end, but it was pretty much over. The Bears then kick a field goal. Vikings can't come back. And then the second one, it's what? They jump out to a 13-0, then 13-3 lead. So it's like, that's one thing, too, with the Vikings, where it's like, can we score the fucking ball in the first half? Like, can we put up more than a field goal? Like, 2 games and we only score 3 points in the first half. And I know that the Bears' defense is good. They're returning most of the same players. Really, the only thing that's changed from last year to this year is that it's Chuck Pagano, big old Chucky, compared to Vic Fangio.
And Amos for Dix.
And Amos for Dix. But, I mean, the thing that I look at is the Vikings need to score the ball in the first half. They need to put the biscuit in the basket if they want to win this game in half number 1.
All right, let's go to predictions here. Like I said, Bears are favored by 2 points. Usually you get at least like 2.5 for being home favorites, so it seems that money is on the Vikings, and at least on that point spread for them to cover and possibly win that game. And then the over-under is 38.5. So take that as you guys may. If you guys want to give predictions with scores and everything like that, go ahead. But Ricky, what's your prediction going to be for Sunday?
I'm going to say Dalvin Cook has 2 touchdowns. Dan Bailey kicks a field goal late. Mitch has a touchdown. Bears defense has a touchdown. Vikings win 17-14.
All right, so you're taking the Vikings and you're taking the
under.
37 points. Dave?
I think it's going to end up going 20-14 Bears over Vikings.
All right, so you're taking the over.
Yep.
And then you're taking the Bears minus
you know
2.
What? I'm going with 13. I'm going to notch down. It's not 2 touchdowns. I'm not giving 2 touchdowns. They're field goal.
Here's the thing. Is you look at week 1, the Bears held Aaron Rodgers to 10 points.
Yep.
You look at week 2, they held Joe Flacco to 14 points.
He's elite.
And he is elite,
and
and he's got a ring, so that means he's important to go into the Hall of Fame like Eli Manning. But with that, too, that was a team that was absolutely dominating throughout that first half before Denver needed to pile on points. And then you look last week, Washington, they had a dominant first half as well. I'm expecting a dominant first half from the Bears, and they have been able to play up before outside of week 1 against Green Bay. Last year was their first and only loss to them in week 1. This year so far, obviously they've only played one NFC North game, but it was a loss to the Green Bay Packers. I think the Bears absolutely destroy the Vikings, and I think they're going to win 28-10.
Ooh.
I think that it's going to be a dominant victory from the Bears. I think it's going to be solely coming off the back of this defense. They just got 5 turnovers, and what you've heard from the Bears is, and at least every defensive player that I've heard speak is, turnovers come in bunches, and if you're turning the ball over, you're going to be able to gain momentum. You're going to be pushing pressure onto them. They're going to try to force more passes. They're going to try to do more with their offense, and that's going to lead to more opportunities. And we see how many possible opportunities the Bears had last week to get turnovers.
Disgusting.
It was ridiculous because so many were overturned by penalties. And I think this team's going to be more tightened up. I think this team's going to be ready. I'm worried that Akeem Hicks might not be healthy and be able to play in this game.
It's going to be huge.
But outside of that, you still have Eddie Goldman, who's a stud. You have Khalil Mack. You have Roy Robertson-Harris. You have Aaron Lynch, who's played fairly well. You have a lot of guys on that offensive line or defensive line that can create pressure on Kirk Cousins. I think we're going to see a turnover-heavy game from the Vikings. Yes, it's a homer take, but it's called fucking Superfans. So whatever. Bears win 28-10. Any shockers that might come out of this game? You said 2 touchdowns from Dalvin Cook.
I mean, the thing that I would be shocked at is, I'm not going to be shocked if the Bears win, even though, of course, Vikings, I got to pick them. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears win. The thing I'd be shocked with is what you said. If either of these teams, Bears or Vikings, blow the other one out. I don't think a blowout's going to happen. Whoever wins, it's going to be close. It's going to be like a 3-4 point, maybe 5 points is stretching it for who's going to win this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings won, but A, fuck the Vikings, and 2,
fair enough.
Fuck the Vikings.
Oh, I know. I just
can we just get a quick shout
I just don't see a blowout.
FTP out here? Can we get the fuck the pack?
Yeah, fuck the Packers.
Well, go Eagles. Go Eagles this week.
But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings won, but I would be shocked if they blew them out. If the Bears blow out the Vikings, I'll be on cloud fucking 9.
Yeah, but would you be shocked that they blew the Vikings out?
No, because I think the Bears can blow anybody out with their defense.
Okay.
It's mainly just due to this defense. I mean, you look at what this defense has been able to do in 2006, 2010 as well, 85. You look at all these years that they've been able to do it and have great defenses, even last year as well. You just need a couple turnovers to go your way, and the points just start racking up. So, I mean, this is a team that, yes, Mitch Trubisky is extremely limited. This offense has not been play called perfectly. You haven't been able to get your third-round running back, who you were so high on, into the offense consistently.
Where's our X factor and Tariq Cohen?
Yeah,
the guy's been missing.
Your guy, Tariq Cohen, has not been doing anything, either be a slot receiver or coming out of the backfield or running the ball as well. I would be shocked if the Vikings blew the Bears out, but outside of that, I would be shocked if we didn't see Eddie Campagneiro, I think.
And because it's Bears-Vikings week, I'm going to throw this question out because I want to know how you guys feel, because I'm sitting here thinking, it's kind of shocking that this team hasn't lost yet.
No, the Lions suck.
Should we be, not scared, but it's like, should we be looking at it and go, maybe the Lions can get a sneaky win against one of us this year?
The Cardinals that they tied, they should have blown them out, and they fucking choked it.
Yep.
Last week, the Eagles, I don't know where the fucking secondary is. I don't know where their offensive line is. They played like absolute dog trash.
Chargers kicker should have made 2 kicks.
The Chargers kicker was a punter.
Yeah.
It wasn't even their kicker. It's their punter. And
So,
what is up with the fucking Chargers?
They
get
can
it.
never have.
The Chargers
Never.
are cursed.
So
why don't people understand that?
So the Lions are going to beat the Chiefs this week? A fluky win against the Chiefs? Is that
No,
what
fuck
we're-
no. Oh, no.
If that
The last
happens-
time Pat Mahomes has played in a dome, he threw for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. He has Mecole Hardman, who I picked up, and he's going to throw three
Was that the
550-plus
Saints?
touchdowns.
Was that the New Orleans dome that he was in when he did that?
Oh, I don't know. It was the Texas Tech 2016 game. I don't know. I saw the stat today. Maybe a Big 12 team has a dome.
I thought it was like Chiefs Saints that he did that in.
No, I don't think they've ever played. I don't think that would be a Super Bowl matchup, because I don't think they played the NFC South last year. Who the fuck did they play in the NFC last week or last year? I don't know. Oh well.
I'll look it up.
Anyways, I got the game here. 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. There it is. It was 586. It was a neutral site against Baylor on November 25th.
Get out of here.
Okay.
Do you not think Pat Mahomes could throw for 500 yards?
Oh, I know he can. It's not a matter of that. I'm just Baylor is less impressive.
The 2 that he had,
What? You think he was going up against Alabama throwing 600 yards?
I know he's not. Come on. That's the point.
he had 2 6-touchdown games last year. One in week 2 at Pittsburgh, where they won 42-37, and then that fucking Rams game. I think that was
That fucking Rams game. The best game of professional football
that was the one that
seen.
was supposed to be in Mexico and got moved to LA, right?
Yeah, because of an earthquake or something like that.
Yeah. He had 6
on
touchdowns
Monday
in
Night
that
Football.
game too.
It was the
54-51 game.
Great Monday Night Football game, because the schedule this year is horrible.
Yep.
Anyways, let us know your predictions down in the comments below. Sorry about no video aspect to at least this segment, but we were having issues with our camera, and hopefully we'll have that for Sam's predictions. But anyways, let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you call us homers in the comments, we don't care, because the whole name of the podcast is Superfans. So it's the point.
That's what you should expect.
Get the show.